Absolutely wild news from NASA today. Something major was captured from 3I Atlas. To be honest, there's still a lot of uncertainty about what it all means. For a few weeks now, we've been observing this object, and while it's certainly been peculiar, there was at least a sense of predictability to it. We could look at the data and think, okay, we see some patterns. We're figuring this out. But today's revelation completely disrupted that calm and comfortable understanding. It's almost as if the comet was saying, "You thought you had me figured out. Just wait." Before diving into what actually happened, I want to take a moment to remind those of you who've been on this journey with me, tracking this interstellar visitor, to subscribe and like the video. Stick around until the end, because what we're uncovering today might be the most compelling evidence yet that 3I Atlas has secrets beneath its surface that we haven't yet unraveled. Now, let's discuss what NASA observed. Interestingly, this latest set of data wasn't expected to reveal anything extraordinary. It was just part of routine observations, using the same instruments, keeping the same intervals, methodically tracking 3I Atlas as it drifts away from the sun. It seemed like just another day of monitoring this stellar traveler. The team sifted through the frames. The first frame appeared normal. The second as well. Everything seemed to be proceeding as anticipated. Then frame 3 arrived, and the comet suddenly shone much brighter than before. It wasn't the entire image that lit up, nor a flare from the sun influencing exposure. Rather, this was a sharp, compact brightening occurring in the inner coma of the comet. It felt like witnessing someone switch on a light inside that misty cloud surrounding the nucleus. This flash lasted long enough to register across multiple exposures, confirming its authenticity. It wasn't just a glitch in a single frame. Then, just as quickly as it brightened, the light faded back to baseline levels as if nothing had transpired. There wasn't a slow build-up or fade-out, just a sudden spike in brightness that vanished instantly. That's where it gets especially strange. Typically, when comets experience outbursts, and they do, it looks rather chaotic. There's a typical appearance to such events, and they tend to evolve over several hours, ejecting dust and gas in a visible manner that spreads across successive frames. It's gradual and clear-cut. But this flash? It skipped all that. It simply appeared and then disappeared without any of the usual signs. Naturally, the teams approached this like any good scientists would. They sought explanations. They looked for any potential reason that might account for this phenomenon, considering it could be an instrumental artifact. They checked for cosmic rays hitting the detector, checked for satellite trails crossing the view, scrutinized bad pixels, and examined any guiding errors. They meticulously reviewed everything that might simulate a brief, sharp burst of light, yet they found nothing that fit the description. The brightening was localized directly on 3I Atlas, and its movement aligned precisely with the comet's trajectory across the sky, while the surrounding star field remained entirely stable. This leaves only one conclusion. The flash originated from the comet itself. What we're witnessing here is genuine comet activity. Now, things get even weirder. The teams employed a clever technique by stacking the images and performing what's called difference subtraction. Essentially, they subtracted the normal baseline of 3I Atlas from the flash mode to identify what was actually different, what was causing that extra light. The analysis revealed something intriguing. The additional brightness wasn't evenly distributed across the coma as one might expect. Instead, it was concentrated along a narrow axis, slightly misaligned from the primary tail direction. Imagine this scene. The coma typically presents as a roughly circular glow surrounding the nucleus, with the tail extending away from the sun as you'd expect. But during this flash, there's a bright band cutting across the inner region at a completely different angle from the tail. Here's the kicker. This concentrated brightening nearly aligns with one of the spots suspected to be an active region on the nucleus. Although it's been faint in prior observations, it remains persistent, consistently appearing in high-contrast images of the comet. So, what might NASA have just witnessed? The most popular theory at this point is that they caught a localized high-energy vent firing off suddenly, like a micro-outburst from a specific crack or area on the nucleus's surface. Yet, calling it a micro-outburst may not fully encompass the magnitude of what transpired. The team measured the intensity of the brightness jump and, importantly, the rapidity of its occurrence, yielding some astonishing numbers. Producing such a dramatic flash in such a short time frame suggests that the vent must have released an immense amount of material in a burst measured in minutes, not hours. Extremely rapid for these occurrences. That implies significant pressure was at play. Something within 3I Atlas was accumulating gas faster than it could gradually seep out through the surface. Pressure built until whatever was sealing it finally ruptured catastrophically. Think of it this way. Imagine an ancient pocket of volatile ice nestled deep within the comet for billions of years, just lying dormant. As the comet moves through our solar system, that ice reaches a critical temperature threshold, begins to expand, and the pressure rises, pushing against the outer crust harder until it can no longer withstand it and cracks. Suddenly, everything violently erupts into space. That would easily explain why the brightening presents itself as a narrow beam and the abruptness of the event. Additionally, it could clarify something else the tracking teams noticed afterward. This flash wasn't merely a visual spectacle, it had physical ramifications too. Right after this event, the orbit calculation team started noticing a subtle yet definitive change in the comet's residuals. Let's break down what that means. If you assess where the comet should be based solely on gravitational influences, its gravitational pull from the Sun and the planets, versus its current location after factoring in this new data point, there's a slight offset. It's incredibly minute, not something you'd perceive if you were standing on Earth or anything of that sort, but it's sufficient for the precision orbital software to flag it, indicating that something nudged this object. This is precisely what one would expect if a one-sided high-energy jet briefly discharged from the nucleus for just a few minutes. Essentially, 3I Atlas acted like it had ignited a thruster on one side, giving itself a small push. But herein lies the conundrum. When you delve into the numbers, this brief thrum of energy turns out to be far more efficient than anticipated. Based on the observed brightening and standard models of how much gas and dust that would entail, the ejected material shouldn't have exerted quite that much thrust on the comet. The numbers don't align perfectly. We're left with two possibilities, neither easy to accept. Either the material was expelled at speeds exceeding the limits of our conventional models, necessitating a fundamental reevaluation of how gas can accelerate through these fractures and vents, or we significantly underestimated the actual mass released during this flash. That would necessitate a return to the drawing board regarding what we believe we know about the comet's internal structure and stability. This is critical to understand. This isn't just any local comet. It's not something formed within our Oort cloud and orbiting our sun for billions of years. This celestial body has been gliding through interstellar space for billions of years. Its crust is likely much harder than what we typically encounter, and its internal layers may be structured in ways that defy our usual expectations. Cosmic radiation has had eons to bombard its outer shell, chemically and physically altering it into something we've never directly sampled in our laboratories. Thus, when pressure builds in 3I Atlas and materials erupt, the behaviors may diverge significantly from the comet outbursts we've recorded in our own solar system. The underlying physics could vary in subtle ways we're just beginning to comprehend. This is precisely why this flash is so important. It's not merely an interesting observation that the comet shone brighter for a moment. It offers a direct glimpse into how an interstellar comet stores and releases energy. This event serves as a real-time examination of how this object is constructed below the surface, what it's made of, its structural integrity, and how it reacts to thermal stress. Moreover, this flash adds to a concerning trend we've been observing. We've identified jets emerging from this comet, heading in directions inconsistent with solar heating models. Then we noticed the coma changing its shape more rapidly than computer models could adequately predict. Following that came these non-gravitational forces, minute pushes on the comet's orbit that were observable, coupled with watching the activity shift across its surface. Now we've detected this significant measurable flash, like a singular heartbeat that delivered enough force to nudge the entire comet. So, what comes next? If this was a singular event, a one-off occurrence, then it provides us with a crucial clue about what's brewing within this object. We can analyze it, model it, and learn from it. However, if we see this happen repeatedly from the same region, if we encounter flashes emerging from that active area again and again, it transforms into more than just a clue. It becomes a recurring pattern, a rhythm. Patterns unveil deeper insights regarding the underlying physics. Should new flashes arise from entirely different regions across the nucleus that haven't shown activity previously, we might witness 3I Atlas entering a new chapter of its existence, one where its ancient, radiation-hardened shell weakens gradually as it speeds away from the solar system. There's also a more dramatic scenario that none of us particularly wish to voice yet, but it's worth mentioning. A string of these flashes occurring with increasing frequency might signal fragmentation. If internal stress mounts and rapid venting emerges from various sites, the comet doesn't continue to just flash. At some point, it fractures and breaks apart. We've observed this behavior in other comets, where structural integrity fails and the nucleus disintegrates into fragments. Currently, NASA's official reports state they witnessed a transient brightening event, an intrinsic flash within the comet itself, exercising careful and measured phrasing. Yet informally, everyone involved with the project is on high alert. Their eyes remain glued to data feeds, because if another flash occurs, if the light curve begins to reveal repeated spikes at regular or irregular intervals, or if the inner coma suddenly fragments into multiple distinct peaks rather than one central concentration, that's when the narrative shifts entirely. It won't simply be a case of, hey, we spotted a fascinating new flash from this interstellar traveler, but rather, oh no, we are witnessing the real-time disintegration of an interstellar object that has traversed the stars. Until that moment arrives, if it ever does, what we possess right now is our clearest insight yet into the violent forces at play within this visitor from another star system. The energy dynamics present within this ancient mass of ice and rock, and who knows what else, are drastically potent. The energy releases are sudden and life-altering. What we're observing isn't a gentle, predictable process. Today, NASA has captured a brand new flash from 3I Atlas, an authentic, powerfully transformative one that even nudged the comet. Given everything we've learned about this object in recent weeks, one thing is quite certain. This is unlikely to be the last surprise this interstellar traveler has in store for us. We're in for an exhilarating ride, and I genuinely can't wait to discover what unfolds next.